It is Sounds True's joy and privilege to feature meditation instruction from one of the most beloved meditation teachers of our time, Pema Chodron. Pema Chodron is the author of numerous books, including How to Meditate, A Practical Guide to Making Friends with Your Mind, and a new book called Fail, Fail Again, Fail Better. She is a student of Tibetan meditation master Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche and Dzigar Khantrul Rinpoche. Pema has a special gift for making accessible the heart teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, and in this special feature of the Meditation Summit, she'll be introducing us to the meditative practice of Tonglen, which literally means taking and sending, a practice which enables us to take in pain and send out relief for ourselves, for other people, and for the world. We hope you enjoy this special selection, Pema Chodron on Tonglen meditation, as a way to conclude our meditation summit.
During this session, I'm going to teach Tonglen practice. And I'd like to talk first about different styles of Tonglen. The very simplest style, which I think would be helpful for every single one of us, and something well worth cultivating in one's life, is taking a Tonglen attitude towards pleasure and pain whenever it arises in your life. I've gotten in the habit of doing this, and I don't always remember to do it, but more and more it becomes spontaneous and natural. And this is when things are painful, in any form, when things are difficult. Usually that in itself will remind me, and just the quality of difficulty, the quality of struggle or pain or dissatisfaction or unpleasantness, that itself will remind me to just have the simple thought, other people feel this. Now that sounds so simplistic, maybe not all that important, but believe me, it makes a big difference. Because what happens with pain is the sense of isolation gets so strong, and the sense of our particular personal burden and the loneliness of that and the desperation of that. So this simple thought, which sometimes is quite challenging to people, that you say it but you don't quite believe it. You think you're the only one. And I've had people many times say to me, this pain that I feel, I think actually no one else in the world feels this. And then I can say to them with tremendous confidence, wrong. But what is not wrong is that we do have that feeling often that I am the only one that has this particular pain. So maybe it will be quite a challenge to you to say this, and it might not seem genuine, but even that is beginning to shake up your complacency about pain being just your individual burden. It somehow shakes it up just to even contemplate that other people feel this. And in many cases, my own experience is just that which could become so introverted, so a downward spiral of depression and isolation, just the thought that other people feel this opens it up. It's what Trungpa Rinpoche used to call thinking bigger. And I think I've said this before, I'll say it again, that compassion or the sense of shared humanity, of our kinship with each other, this is what heals. This is what heals the desperation that we feel, the darkness that we feel, and the chain reaction of aggression or chain reaction of misery that gets triggered off by just sometimes a slight shift in the energy, and we feel uneasy or agitated or unhappy in some way, and then that spirals into a chain reaction of pain. One thing leading to another, a sort of struggle to try to get away from that uneasy, uncomfortable feeling. So this is a basic Tonglen logic to just, when you feel the discomfort, to just have the thought, other people feel this. And then if you want to take it a step, rather dramatic step further, you can say, may we all be free of this. But it's enough just to acknowledge that other people feel this. And then the most dramatic and probably most difficult, taking it even a step further, would be to say, since I'm feeling this anyway, may I be feeling it so all others could be free of it. So it's kind of 3 levels of courage. The least courage is just to say other people feel this, and that is enough. But if in that particular moment of time it feels genuine to say, may we all, I don't know if so much be free of this is the right way to say it, but may this become a path of awakening the heart for all of us. And then the one that sometimes you might feel really genuinely be able to say, just because of how you're feeling in that moment of time, to take it the most deepest level of courage is to say, since I'm feeling this anyway, may I feel it so that others could be free of it. So this is Tonglen attitude towards pain on the spot in your everyday life. It doesn't involve the breathing in and breathing out, but it's the spirit of Tonglen. And I'd like to sort of leave you with this simplest form, because for sometimes the actual practice of Tonglen feels like too much too soon. And if that's your reaction to the practice, this period of studying together, the practice of Tonglen, is introducing you to a whole new way of relating with pain. But if the practice itself seems overwhelming, particularly if the practice feels extremely frightening to you, it's best to just put it aside, maybe to never take it up again, or perhaps later, unexpectedly, it will be just what you need. But in any case, this very simple form of just, when you feel pain, thinking of others feeling this also, this is news we can use. And then the other side of it is pleasure or delight. Tonglen has the in-breath, which is about suffering, the out-breath, which is about happiness or joy or relief. So the simplest way of working with Tonglen attitude towards pleasure and delight and well-being and inspiration and happiness is that whenever you experience happiness in your life, you think to yourself, may other people feel this. And sometimes actually it's quite useful and helpful to people to make it more personal, that when you feel pain, you say, this pain that I'm feeling, it might occur to you that someone you know actually feels this way. And may that particular person be able to experience this as a path of awakening. And in terms of joy, you might wish that this particular pleasure that you're feeling at this moment, may some specific person or people have this pleasure. Someone you know has lots of darkness in their life, isn't able to have any, because of what they're going through, physical pain, mental pain, that they have no joy or no access to joy or inspiration in their life. And so you might specifically say, this taste of delicious soup or delicious cake or whatever it might be, may so-and-so have the pleasure that I'm feeling now. May they just have that pleasure. It doesn't have to be around cake or soup, but just could they have the pleasure? And then spread it out more. Could people all over the world who are in darkness, who have no sweetness in their life, could they experience this? So sharing the wealth. Now when I talk about happiness or inspiration, it can be the smallest of things. And I train this way all the time, that whenever it occurs to me that in this moment I'm feeling a sense of relief or a sense of happiness, to cherish these moments, to acknowledge them. It's almost like saying to yourself, how unusual, in this moment I am happy. And you know, there are a lot of moments like that in everyday life, but we miss them and we emphasize more the pain. So these moments are things like you're cold and you put on another article of clothing, or you go inside or something and then you feel warmth. Or the taste of something, or you've been cold, you're too hot and someone opens a window, or you take off an article of clothing and you feel cool. It just, they don't have to be big deal winning the Academy Award. But the big deals are good ones too. You know, when you get the job, or the person you're in love with turns out they also love you, or whatever it might be. Pleasure even reading a good book, seeing a good movie, whatever it might be, that you acknowledge that there's some inspiration or gratitude or some heartfelt feeling. And then you have the thought, may others experience this. So if you leave with nothing else in terms of practice, this practice is a good one. When there's pain, think of others. When there's delight, think of others. Not in any kind of do-gooder sense, you see, but it's kind of the sense of sharing the human experience, bringing us closer to one another. And then that being the simplest form of on-the-spot attitude, of the Lojong or Tonglen attitude, now I'm going to teach the most complicated. And this is a Tonglen instruction that was given by Trungpa Rinpoche to his students. This is the form of Tonglen that I was taught, and I'll now pass on to you. So the Tonglen practice that in the style that Trungpa Rinpoche taught has 4 stages. The first stage is called a flash of openness, just a moment of opening the mind. And traditionally it's called a flash of the absolute bodhicitta. That's kind of not necessary to have those fancy foreign words, just a sense of openness. And the next stage is one breathes in quality of claustrophobia in the form of breathing in like a dark, heavy, hot, breathing it in on the medium of the breath. And breathing out cool and refreshing, sort of the quality of inspiration or letting go or well-being. And one does that synchronized with the breath. Breathing in the quality of claustrophobia, breathing out the quality of openness or spaciousness. So breathing in dark, heavy, and hot, sending out cool and light and refreshing. Then the third stage is working with something personal and real to you. And this is actually, as a formal practice, this is where it gets tough. And this is why I teach Tonglen on the spot, because on the spot there's a real situation occurring, your own personal suffering, which can be a stepping stone to understanding the suffering that other people feel just like you, or the suffering of another person. Something immediate is happening and you begin to do the Tonglen. It doesn't even occur to you to do it unless something is cooking. But when you're sitting here and suddenly a gong rings, I'm going to ring the gong when we start Tonglen, and then somebody says, you know, now start doing Tonglen about someone else's suffering or your own or whatever. It's very easy to just like spend the whole time trying to figure out what to do Tonglen for. And also I had the experience for years where the gong would ring. To begin Tonglen, traditionally the gong rings like this. And then the person who's leading the meditation will say, begin Tonglen. So that gong would ring, and my experience for years was I would just sort of like space out. And then about 10 minutes later or something, there would be an ending gong. And at that point, I would wake up out of my, wherever I was, you know, and realize that I had just had 10 or 15 minutes of not doing Tonglen. This was beginning to get embarrassing because I was becoming more and more famous as a Tonglen teacher. I thought if they only knew. So it was at that point that I really started doing it on the spot more and more. And as a result of that, now when that gong rings, or I started doing Tonglen practice without a gong, I have a lot of material to work with because I'm so, it's become so second nature to do it on the spot, and therefore there's a lot of current issues going on, my own or people in my life where there's suffering happening, pain happening. But in any case, today when we get to that third stage of working with something particular, I'm going to suggest that in this particular morning meditation that you do Tonglen for a family member, anybody in your family. And I choose that on purpose because of that representing usually for us intimacy, intimate relationships, and usually also difficult relationships. And so in this sense, you might choose someone in your family and they might be in difficulty. Perhaps your mother or your brother is schizophrenic, or your father or your sister are addicted to alcohol or heroin or coke or something, not coke, crack, or something in any case. And so you want to work with a particular individual and you start doing the Tonglen for them, and it's very genuine, and the whole session you just do the Tonglen for them. On the other hand, it's just as likely with a family member that just bringing up the face of your mother or your sister or your father or your brother or your uncle or child or whoever it might be brings up a lot of conflicting feelings. Everything from sometimes a mixture of loving them and hating them, sometimes absolute aversion. And so in that sense, when you think of the family member and it brings up confusion for you, then you could shift your attention and start to do Tonglen with breathing in, connecting with whatever it is you're feeling, your aversion, your confusion, your mixture of like and dislike, breathing in and connecting with it fully, and sending out to yourself and all others in the same boat as you, whatever it is you feel you need at that point to open up the situation, sending out spaciousness, relief, relaxation, loving kindness, good cup of coffee, whatever it might be. So this third stage is very particular, and then it's the fourth stage is universalizing, which is to say, this is what I've been talking about all along, that when you do Tonglen for your mother who's in difficulty, and it's very straightforward and it's not complicated, you do it for your mother who is alcoholic or who is suffering from tremendous pain from cancer, or senility and confusion or whatever it might be, and then you extend it out and do it for all the other men and women in the world who are suffering in the same way as your mother is. Or if you feel, you think of your mother or someone in the family and you feel a lot of confusion, aversion, fear, whatever it might be, you start doing Tonglen with what you're feeling and all the other people in the same, who feel the same things as you do. So I talk of it as 4 stages, the third being something very real and particular, and the fourth being generalizing it more, using your own personal experience as a stepping stone for all the other people who feel like you do, or all the other people that are in the same situation as your mother or father, whoever. But sometimes it's even more valuable to think of it as 3 stages, and that the third stage has a kind of part 1 and part 2. Part 1 being your mother, and then almost simultaneously you do it for all the mothers, or all the people in your mother's situation. Or your fear, and almost simultaneously, if you can, you do it for all the people who are feeling fear in this very moment of time, in this very moment, all over the world, people who are feeling what you're feeling. So now, just to review again, I'm going to say 3 stages of Tonglen. The first is a flash of openness. The idea here is that if we make the suffering, the breathing in, too solid a thing, too, if it's like completely claustrophobic and overwhelming, and then people will often feel like they're breathing in. We used to call it the black sack syndrome, that you're breathing in and you're like this sack that's filling up with poison, and then there's no ability to breathe out, and so every in-breath you just get more and more like toxic waste dump syndrome. And so, you do it like that, it's completely, who needs it, right? Like, you say, well, this is crazy. And it's a misunderstanding of the practice. So there's really, to use images, it's more like breathing into a vast space. Or sometimes people will use the image of the heart, in the sense of breathing in to the heart, and as you breathe in, the heart gets bigger and bigger. It gets as big as it needs to be able to embrace or contain the fear or the pain that you're breathing in. You just make the heart as big as you can. So it's like opening up your whole being. So some sense of breathing into a big space, or a heart that can open infinitely. And that's the idea of the flash of openness or spaciousness at the beginning, is that it's like a flashing, sometimes people say flashing a sense of big sky, or flashing a sense of standing next to the ocean and the vastness of looking out at the sea, or being high up in the hills or the mountains and looking out, or being in the airplane, looking out the airplane window over the cloud world. But some sense of whatever in your mind is evokes a sense of kind of limitless space. Lying on your back, looking up. If you're someplace where you can see the stars and you look up and the sky is so vast and endless, infinite. So just a sense of opening. And the more you do a mindfulness awareness practice, the more you have access to some sort of sense of gap or spaciousness, not caught upness. So the idea is at the beginning of the practice to just have a flash of that as best you can. So when the gong rings, this is like a very helpful assistance. Now, when you sit and do Tonglen, you're not always going to have a gong, but should you have one, then that can be the same as the flash or the moment of spaciousness, because when you hear the gong, you just listen to the sound, and then you start into the second stage. But it's like a kind of a opening there, or a spacious moment. So then this is like a kind of underlying understanding that begins to develop, is that no matter how much pain you get in touch with, breathing in, it's like opening up the space when you breathe in. Instead of pushing away, making barriers around your heart, making fortresses around your whole being, the breathing in is a dissolving of all of the barriers and opening up into a vast space. That's always there. And then when you send out, it's a sense of letting go, opening up. Again, opening to a lot of space, a lot of relaxation, the accessibility of the big sky always being here. So then you move into the second stage, which is actually then diving right into the middle of the discomfort and the pain and the delight, but in a visual way. The eyes can be open or closed, and you breathe, and the practice is on the medium of the breath. One of the slogans, one of the Lojong slogans, actually gives Tonglen instruction. The slogan is, practice sending and taking on the medium of the breath. One should practice taking and sending on the medium of the breath. That's actually the Tonglen instruction. So in this case, one breathes in dark, heavy, and hot, and one takes it in through all the pores of one's body. Sense of breathing in completely, fully. And then, because as I've said, what that's doing is dissolving all the barriers that are around us, then one can breathe out on the out-breath, light, cool, and refreshing, and you radiate that out 360 degrees. It just goes out all the pores of your body. So even though it's synchronized with the breath going in and out, it's actually more a full body breathing in and a full body breathing out. If you just do it on the breath, sometimes, people sort of get stuck in their throat. There's like this little, this little thing. So you have a sense of breathing in completely, sending out completely, but it's synchronized with the in and out breath. So there's a lot of relaxation just in the fact that you're breathing in deeply, sending out deeply. So that's the second stage, and that is visual, breathing in. Now some people don't like they don't experience claustrophobia because it's dark and heavy and hot. And people sometimes say they like to breathe in red and fiery and, like that. And they send out maybe blue or whatever feels refreshing, turquoise. One man was telling me he always sends out turquoise with a lot of little stars in it. Well, whatever works for you. So, but the idea is breathing in the kind of atmosphere of claustrophobia. So sometimes for people that's heavy and dark, hot, sending out cool and refreshing. Now, as I say, the eyes can be open or closed, and it's very important that you give equal time to the in-breath and the out-breath. Most of us, when we start to do the practice, particularly as a formal practice of sitting, we find that we either have a preference for the in-breath or for the out-breath. So we get this kind of or people feel like they can take on pain. Boy, they know pain, but they don't feel like they have anything to give. And so there's kind of imbalance. Or there's the, terrified of the pain, which is, I think, more like where I usually come from. So it's sort of like, and you want to, groove on the space. So the idea is equal time, You can breathe in deeply and breathe out deeply. Breathe in and breathe out, sort of equal time. With the idea that somehow you're ventilating the whole atmosphere, opening up the space. And in the process, you will find that, that probably that in-breath is more frightening, out-breath is you're more attached to, or vice versa. And all of that is part of what's extremely helpful in terms of the Maitri practice of moving closer to yourself. knowing who you are and what you do, what you're afraid of and what you cling to. And then we move on to the third stage, which is to start to do Tonglen for a real situation, your own pain, and then for all others in the same boat as you. That's the third stage, part 1 and 2. Or you start doing Tonglen for someone in the family, and then for all the people that are in the same situation as that family member. And also, when you start to get to the particular stage of Tonglen, sometimes you just stick with one person. That's what happens to you. And sometimes one person, it just starts spreading, and it's one person after another, or one animal after another, or whatever, that it doesn't just stay with one person, and that's fine. So this is very personal. Whatever happens, you just work with that. And if you start to do the practice and you're saying to yourself, I can't do this, then you can do Tonglen for all the people who can't do this. And if you say, I don't like this is crazy, you can do Tonglen for all the people who don't like where they find themselves and want to get out of there. I'm afraid there's no way to escape from Tonglen. Wherever's happening, you can use that. People will sometimes say, if Tonglen on the spot is so much more to the point, then why do we do the formal practice of Tonglen? And really the main reason is because if you do the formal practice of Tonglen, then it occurs to you to do it on the spot. And also because the formal practice of Tonglen, with or without the 4 stages, meaning with the 4 stages or just simply moving, having a flash of openness and then moving into the breathing in and out for a particular situation, is very, very useful when you're sitting by the bedside of someone who's dying or sitting with someone who's very, very ill, that you can actually do Tonglen practice in those kind of difficult situations, and it's very, very helpful. When doing Tonglen as a formal practice, incorporated in your meditation, what is generally taught is that first you do mindfulness, awareness, sitting practice, or other form of sitting meditation practice. And then having done that for a while so that you're some sense of settling, moving closer to yourself and being here, then you begin to do Tonglen practice. And at the end of the Tonglen, again, you return to the sitting practice of the mindfulness awareness sitting practice. So it is sandwiched with a mindfulness awareness sitting meditation practice. We'll start this morning with a very, very short period of sitting, just a few moments, and then go right into the Tonglen. I'll hit the gong twice, and as I was suggesting, if you listen to the sound of the gong going out into the space, that's a very useful way of opening the mind, resting the mind, a moment of stillness or openness. In any case, whether you are able to rest the mind in a moment of stillness or not, continue right on into the next stage. I've had any number of people say, well, I couldn't do the first stage, so I just gave up and didn't bother to go any further. So it's sort of gesture, and we will be whatever it is. In any case, it's very brief, and then move on to the second stage of breathing in and out the quality of claustrophobia and inspiration or spaciousness. So we'll begin with a short period of sitting. Now beginning with a moment of stillness or the flash of the absolute bodhicitta. Then move into the next stage, breathing in the heavy and hot, sending out cool, light, and refreshing. The eyes can be open or closed. Do this synchronized with the breath. The dark coming in, the cool and refreshing going out. Heavy, thick quality coming in completely. Brilliant light, fresh quality, radiating it out, sending it out in all directions completely. And when you feel ready, when you feel this is synchronized on the breath, then move on to doing Tonglen for a family member, and then as soon as possible, universalizing, doing it for all the people in that family member's situation, or for all the people feeling what you're feeling. Doing Tonglen with a family member. Either what they trigger off in you, or just doing it straightforwardly for them. Breathing in is an opening. Sending out is an opening as well. Sometimes it helps to bring up the face or say the name of the person that you are working with. Remember to always move from the particular to the universal, using whatever you're working with as a stepping stone for understanding the broader suffering that is just like what you're feeling or what your family member is feeling. hear this gong? And gradually move back to doing mindfulness awareness practice.